Hello and welcome back. Jeb Smith here. So yesterday we received the new proposal from President-elect Biden with regards to his stimulus plan. Some items that he wants to include in that stimulus plan, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. But I've always made the promise to continue to update you whenever there's changes with regards to evictions and foreclosure moratoriums, as well as mortgage forbearances. And one of the things he's proposing is going to affect those that could potentially be evicted, and it could also affect landlords. It will most likely affect landlords, but it could go one of a couple of different ways. So we're going to explain how that might work. We're also going to explain the additional, rental assistance that he's throwing into the stimulus package, and how all of that works. But before we dive into that, I want to take a minute and ask a favor. If you're new to me, new to my channel, you like all things real estate related, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. So the reason most of you are probably here is because you want to hear about the eviction and foreclosure moratorium. So part of the proposal is to extend that foreclosure and eviction moratorium until the end of September. So if you've been following this for any period of time, this was part of the original CARES package back in March of 2020. And then it was set to expire, a couple of months after that, and continued to get pushed all the way until, as of right now, it's set to expire at the end of January. So if no changes happen, if the stimulus package isn't passed or something else isn't, put into action prior to that, we will have evictions and foreclosures starting at the end of January, depending on where you're located. States like California have additional moratoriums that push it out even further, but the federal ban expires at the end of January. Well, President Biden is proposing that they extend it until September. This would actually make it 18 months from the original date, so a year and a half from when it was originally put into effect, to allow tenants to stay in properties rent-free if they were affected by the pandemic. But this whole time, while tenants aren't paying, landlords are being affected. Now, if the landlord had a federally backed loan, they could have applied for mortgage forbearance, which would allow them to not have to make the payment because their tenant wasn't making the payment. But at the end of the day, the landlord is still going to be responsible for making those payments at some point in the future or what have you. So the landlord is really the one that's really being affected more so in the long run than the tenants right now, because the tenants are able to live rent free, and if they decide not to pay, then they've got to go to court and so on and so forth. So part of this stimulus package, in addition to the pushing it out into September, is adding another $30 billion to rental assistance. Now, last month we talked about them passing the $25 billion in the last stimulus package that President Trump passed back in December, which I'll link to here. But now they're proposing an additional $30 billion on top of the $25 billion that was just passed. So we're talking $55 billion towards rental assistance, which is supposed to go to landlords. It's supposed to go to, to pay for utilities. It's supposed to not necessarily go to the tenant per se, but go to the landlord of the property that they're renting, and so on and so forth. So these people are supposed to, when I say these people, renters are supposed to apply for this rental assistance through their city, through their state, wherever the program is set up for them, and provide information with regards to their rental situation and how they've been affected. And in theory, their landlord would be cut a check for the past due rent up to 12 months, in some cases potentially longer, depending on the situation, which I explained in that video. But this could go one of two ways, right? As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if tenants in properties that have been affected actually reach out and ask for this money, and the money goes to their landlord and gets their landlord paid current, and the tenant becomes current on their payments and their utilities and what have you, it's a good thing, right? That's going to, not only help stimulate the economy, but keep, bigger issues from unfolding later in the future. Now, that's outside of all the stimulus is being added, because that's a whole different issue. But The other option is that they don't call at all, they don't apply, they don't try to do anything, they just continue to live in the property, and that money stays, out there and never gets claimed. And that's what I see a lot of people doing, because not everyone understands and knows about this rental assistance that's out there. So if you are behind in your rent, make sure you're checking with resources, cities, states, to find out how you can apply for it, because this could get you current on your rent, current on your utilities if you're behind, in a position where you might not be evicted at the end of this. Whereas if you avoid it, you don't reach out, you don't try to get the money, at some point in the future, this is going to come to pass, and you could likely be evicted from the property. So it could go one of a couple of ways, but hopefully it goes the first way, where people actually reach out, try to get the money, try to, pay their past due rent, so that they don't have to worry about getting kicked out of properties, being evicted, and what have you. But in addition to this extension of the foreclosure and eviction moratorium, there's also a couple of other things in there that Biden has proposed. And again, this is a proposal, right? It hasn't passed. Chances are there's going to be some negotiations from between both sides to try to work out something that will actually happen. But one of the things that's out there is, in addition, they're proposing an additional $1,400 on top of the $600 that was passed back in December by President Trump, making it an even $2,000. On top of that, they're proposing an additional $100 to be added to the unemployment benefits that were passed back in December. At that time, it was $300, so adding an additional $100 to it, making it $400. Another thing they're proposing is boosting the child credit by 50% up to $3,000 per kid, which could potentially put more money back in your pocket when you file your taxes. On top of that, there's additional things with regards to food stamps and so on and so forth. So what they're trying to do with this additional stimulus, all these different proposals, is help those that have been affected the most. So at this time, we really don't know what's going to pass, but I would imagine that the eviction and foreclosure moratorium being pushed out till September is one of those things that is definitely going to be in there, along with that rental assistance, because those are two things that are really needed right now on top of the stimulus checks. But as I promised, I'll continue to update you as we get more information. If you have questions for me, do me a favor, comment below. As always, I appreciate you taking the time to watch, appreciate the support. We'll see you again soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.